The abduction of children of high-profile people is on the rise. The latest incident involves the kidnapping of the son of a wealthy Mozambican businessman who was rescued in Gauteng on Friday. Now, the family, the child was found by police in Heidelberg. This is 37 days after he was abducted. Now, early this month, the Moti brothers were returned home in Limpopo after going missing for about 3 weeks. Joining me now for this conversation is Special Investigator Mike Bolhuis, who joins us via the virtual platform. Mr. Bolhuis, thank you very much for your time. Firstly, is it correct to assume that the children who are being targeted here are children of wealthy individuals or wealthy families? Is that a correct assumption to make?
Absolutely. It's factual, as a matter of fact, that kidnappers will only, on this level now, will only take extremely rich people, businessmen, or their children. It's escalated to children now, which is a very, very big concern to us and obviously to the country as well as the authorities, because they are easier targets. So, yes, it's absolutely correct.
Yeah. And, of course, the next question then becomes money. Just how receptive should these families be? And it's a very difficult question to actually even think about or contemplate for an affected family, because all you want is the return of your child. And so the consideration about paying over a ransom, which some say will only encourage these abductions, is a secondary thought.
Yes, we have to understand several things pertaining kidnapping. We are on this show only talking about high-level kidnappings, where the most valuable item, so to say, is taken from a family, which could be a family member or a child. Secondly, you will pay with your life to have your child back, and most probably that family member as well, because it's the most valuable item the criminals have identified. And then thirdly, the kidnapping crime is successful because it has been committed in South Africa and worldwide many a times, and it's been successfully completed. Yeah. Because they do return the people after they've received the monies that they have identified that family could pay. And on your second statement, it is a problem that you pay criminals, but on the other hand, the kidnappers knows that as well, and they know that they will eventually get what they want. Unfortunately, this is the case. The question is, do you expose the crime immediately, or do you do a cloak and dagger investigation? That's the question.
Well, then, of course, the immediate thought for those people that might see themselves as vulnerable to these kidnappings is to step up security. What other measures can they possibly take in order to prevent these from taking place?
First of all, do not socialize constantly and always on social media about your belongings, what you have, the Ferrari you drive, how many houses you have, your holiday home, and all your riches. Don't expose it. Don't have it flaunted. The syndicates are very, very clever when they take somebody. They have done an investigation before on this specific person that they have identified, which they usually pick up by either intel or on social media. They do a thorough investigation as to see exactly what's the worth of that family and every and all the insights of the family and what they will do to get the child or the businessman back. So that's number one. Secondly, You need to be very careful if you're a rich businessman in South Africa today, especially if you're a foreigner. They usually, 99%, take foreigners and keep them, and then obviously extort money out of the family and friends. So bodyguarding is, in my opinion, an option. Also, proper security systems in place, proper tracking technological paraphernalia available. So the South African businessman and family that's foreigners in South Africa should really step up to those 3 levels in order to make sure that they are not taken, all their kids, and secondly, that they are properly possibly tracked and traced if taken.
Yeah.
The problem is these criminals know what me and you are talking about, and they listen to this, and they adapt. But unfortunately, information is power, and you need to empower this country of ours with all its participants in order to avoid these kidnappings. And I unfortunately have to say this is the way. You need to expose it as it is.
Yeah.
And then lastly, do not unnecessarily travel and do not take regular routes. You need to live a kind of a positive paranoia. You have to be extremely wake up and aware.
Sure. Now, let's talk about our law enforcement authorities in the cases that you may have dealt with, or should we say looking at crime stats in general. When it comes to these kidnappings, we saw the Moti boys basically being returned, and there wasn't any mention of the role that may have been played by the police. How effective are our law enforcement in tracking these and even making arrests when it comes to these cases?
The police cannot be blamed in all of these cases, and definitely not blamed in the Moti case, because the criminal, and as I've explained before and on many projects and communications, that these high-level syndicates leaves no forensic, no physical evidence behind. As a matter of fact, not even the children that is returned will be able to divulge any information. If I can speculate, the children was most probably kept in one room with hoodies over their heads, and they would never see the criminals. They would never hear them speak. They will just get food, and they will just be taken care of until return. These criminals don't make mistakes. They plan things a year up to 6 months before. When they strike, they have absolutely everything in place. They know exactly what, where, when, and how. They have their connections in authorities, most probably a corrupt policeman or two, or in the security infrastructure, as well as people close by to the family, spotters and observers.
Yeah.
So they do surveillance, and they have absolutely everything. And when they take, they leave no information behind. However, our police, unfortunately, in South Africa is not equipped to deal with high-level kidnappings. The normal kidnappings, which is the most I'm mentioning now, is the most one is where a child is not returned due to a divorce proceedings or the divorce interdicts or agreements that is not being kept. But on this level, the police does not have the infrastructure, they don't have the technology, they don't have the know-how, and they don't have the intel or the informant structure whatsoever. The only way that these syndicates ever gets caught is if there's a situation of no honor amongst criminals and they give each other up, or somebody makes a stupid mistake, which seldom happens because the kidnappers works on a level where the top level does not expose itself to the middle level, to the lower level. In other words, groups of people are hired, they get paid for a job, they never meet the snake of the head, ever.
So, fair to assume that these are well-executed kidnappings, which in all probability are done by people who know this kind of thing very well. But what other assumptions could we make about the people who execute these kidnappings? Could they be linked to law enforcement? Could they be former law or former police officers or former army personnel? What kind of individuals are we possibly dealing with here?
Because it's a multi-million rand or dollar industry, they can afford the best IT specialist, the best cybercrime expert, the best policeman, the best security guard, and it could be in more. It could be more policemen, more security guards. They can afford the best banker because they launder the money overseas. These monies is not paid in South Africa at all. These are all planned money laundering transactions that is done overseas. So, and they are patient. They have the advantage. They are not like the most of the criminals that we know that just want to quickly get something and take their chances. These criminals are extremely well oiled. They've been doing this for a long time, and they're prepared to wait a year for 500,000, for 500 million, or up to $1 billion even. It depends. They identify exactly how money they can get. They identify their target, and then they exercise, as I've said, this plan into perfection. So yes, they are extremely connected. Unfortunately, the authorities will not easily, it's very seldom that the authorities identify them because they work on a cloak and dagger basis. And they will, if necessary, kill somebody if somebody were to be a rat or talk or be putting the syndicate in a compromising position. So yes, they're extremely dangerous and violent as well. However, we haven't seen that as yet because they do get what they want. If they have an extremely rich businessman, the family, they've identified already that family would do everything in their power, pay with their lives to get this grandfather or husband back, or the children. I mean, would you? Me and you would do that. So this is unfortunately one of those perfect crimes that are being committed in the world. And it's very difficult to stop it.
Mike Bolhuis, thank you very much for your insights on this matter. Special investigator talking to us about high-level kidnappings we've seen.